Hello, I'm Todd Mickelson, host of a Satellite View podcast. It's hard to find clarity or focus here on the ground with the fire hose of issues and events. We go up high and look back on Earth from a satellite view, where we can gain our bearings and learn from the past to shoot for a better future. And have fun and laughs along the way. Go to am950radio.com, click the programs link, and find a satellite view with Todd Mickelson.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for rain this afternoon with the temp falling to about 37. Tonight, 3 to 5 inches of snow with a low around 26. And Wednesday, partly cloudy with a high around 32. Looking for a cozy neighborhood bar and restaurant in Minneapolis? Nightingale serves delicious American classics like their famous Nightingale Burger, ginger tamari chicken wings, and more. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with takeout available. Visit nightingalempls.com for details.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thegailyshow. This is The Gaily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. Joining me in studio, our executive producer, Jim Pounds.
The price of eggs are up 39% since January 1st.
Thank you, Jim. And in the control room today, Patrick, how's it going?
Doing pretty well. Unfortunately, I don't eat eggs, so that doesn't affect me as much. But, you know, we were told day one, 50 cents a carton. Where are they?
Yeah. Well, apparently there aren't any on the shelves.
Yep. Right.
So not only is the price going up,
right.
It is our call-in number 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. We have a winter storm coming into Minnesota tonight, which just feels, it was 50 degrees yesterday at 51. This is the time of year where I feel like I live in an abusive relationship with Minnesota.
That's classic this is the winter tournament, or the spring tournaments always get snowstorms, it seems to me. I've only lived here since 1983, but
this is
I expect a lot of snow in March.
Least favorite time of year. It's like, make up your mind. Okay, so what is on the show today? California has an interesting healthcare bill that they are advancing through their legislature. We're going to revisit the stage carnival that was the press conference last week with Ukraine. The Trump administration was bribing trans service members to leave the service. But first, which affects all of us, in addition to the egg prices, the tariff war is officially on. So after midnight, Trump imposed 25% tariffs, aka taxes, on Mexican and Canadian imports, though he limited energy to 10%, and then he doubled the tariff on Chinese products to 20%. Immediately, Beijing responded with a 15% tariff across the board on a wide variety of U.S. farm exports. All of this is according to AP News. And it's Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that they would be having tariffs on U.S. goods, about $100 billion worth of tariffs over the next 3 weeks. The Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, says that Mexico will be responding by the end of the week. For those of us in Minnesota, the Ontario Premier, so Ontario Province in Canada, said that he is going to impose a 25% export tax. I want to be yes, 25% export tax on the electricity that the province sends to Minnesota, Michigan, and New York, which is expected to impact, this is according to Wall Street Journal, 1.5 million American homes. Ford said that he will completely shut down Ontario's energy exports if Trump moves forward with even more tariffs on April 2nd, which Trump has threatened. In addition, Ford is saying he is ready to withhold the nickel that the Ontario province sells to the United States. So we'll see that impact pretty quickly here. U.S. pump prices already predicted to go up first in New England. That is the part of the country that has the closest integration with the Canadian energy market and gasoline. They are saying, and this is Reuters reporting, that prices in New England could go up 20 to 40 cents in the very near, like now, future. Folks in the south, well, I guess Gulf of Mexico region will be affected by the Mexican tariffs on those imports. And folks in the Midwest could see 10 to 15% jump in oil, gasoline prices rather, over the next few weeks.
I think what we're going to see, I mean, what I've been reading on a higher level, what kind of overall inflation is this going to cause? And the estimates I've seen are about 15%. So it's on top of wherever we are right now. If you think things are expensive, they're going to go up on average, some more, some less, but on average, 15%. That is the gift that 77.3 million of your fellow Americans gave you by voting for this nightmare. So thank somebody that voted for Trump.
Okay,
the next time you see them.
No plan to help intervene and deal with the avian flu affecting chicken farms across the country. So egg prices. Also just disappearing off the shelves now because, there's that. Gas prices are going to go up and your electric bill is going to go up. How is this the party of the economy? How do we still believe that? Here's another fun thing. Trade groups are now saying that tariffs will bring up car prices by 25% if these tariffs continue. That you can't, they're saying, well, we can't just suddenly pack up and leave Mexico and Canada and China to come back to the United States. Weirdly, but of course we live in a bizarre world. Not only do the Teamsters as a union love Trump, but the United Auto Workers love what's happening. And they say it's going to be even better in April when he takes further tariff actions. In Reuters, the union through a representative said that we are glad to see an American president take aggressive action on ending the free trade disaster that has dropped like a bomb on the working class. Well, okay. So this was the way to go about doing it? Really?
Well, if you read some economists, they're saying this is the precursor to a depression. We're not talking about recession. We're talking about the big D, and that's going to be deadly for millions and millions of people. And that's the game that's being played by people that don't know what they're doing, either in office or the people who did the voting don't know what they're doing, and the result is going to be very, very bad for all of us. Very bad indeed.
Well, it grates that there are progressives that are very critical of NAFTA. The progressives shut down the Obama administration's attempt on the Pacific Pact that he was trying to negotiate, which was like a NAFTA, but for Pacific Rim countries, including the United States. And so there is a desire to deal with the disaster that was free trade with progressives within the Democratic Party, but they have been shut out. The idea now that unions are getting on board with a union-busting president who could care less about union households does not have a plan. These tariffs are not going to bring these automakers back. And then even if they wanted to just say, oh, yeah, we're packing up right now, we're all done, we're going to move back to the United States, like that's just not going to happen. So there were progressive ways of going about and doing this, and they got lost in the machinery of the Democratic Party, absolutely. But the idea that we can now just suddenly throw our hat, as union folks. I'm not currently a union member because I own an LLC, and I don't have staff. But when I was working in higher education, I was part of a union, and I was a steward for my union, and I was on the negotiating committees for my union. And the idea that suddenly we can be all gangbusters for a union-busting president.
Well, I mean,
blows my mind.
I don't. Wouldn't it be interesting to know how unions actually voted? I don't know. I don't care what the management says. I could care less. But the rank and file, I think in many cases did vote for the person that will destroy their jobs. Certainly a lot of these people that are losing jobs in government are union members. So unions are going to this is going to be a calamity for organized labor. And that means a calamity for middle class America, because the two things go hand in hand. So yes, I don't understand Americans' constant capacity for destroying themselves, but we've got it. We've got that disease, whatever it is.
Well, for union households right now, and all of our households, if gasoline prices go up, electricity prices go up, food prices go up. Where was it here? I was just seeing that toy companies were saying that with the Chinese tariffs, the cost of toys is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a family, you've got kids, you're living paycheck to paycheck, your union wages are the only thing preventing you, or at least one person in the household being a member of a union, is the only thing preventing you from going into a financial catastrophe.
Yep.
All of your prices are going up now.
Yep.
And this is not the way forward to dealing with free trade.
Well,
but
hopefully a lot of people are going to get angry about this. You and I have talked about this. We hope that every single person that was stupid enough to vote for this person, or for any Republican, to be honest with you, that they regret that deeply. And if you don't regret it today on the 4th of March, you will regret it by the 31st of March tremendously. So to sacrifice your own family for some other philosophical nonsense that you apparently don't even understand is pretty ignorant, I'm going to have to say. So let people learn their lesson, I guess, learn a really rough lesson.
But this is also where we need to keep pushing the Democratic Party for creating a governing coalition that takes into account the Elizabeth Warrens, that takes into account the Bernie Sanders, that takes into account the Squad, because their economic policies are more aligned with the United Auto Workers, with Teamsters, with union households.
Well, we've said this before. If Bernie Sanders had been the nominee, he would have wiped the floor with Donald Trump in 2016. And I wish our people had allowed that
speculation.
to happen.
But what we can do right now, though, is allow for a governing coalition that takes these things into place. And when the Democratic bosses are always like, no, Bernie doesn't know what he's talking about. No, we can't do, Elizabeth Warren, she's great on regulation, but we can't take her, economic plans. Like, these are the things that are actually resonating with working class voters. And when you keep marginalizing them and you're not creating a democratic space for these ideas to move forward and become part of a more comprehensive platform, and again, I really want to, that being said, there are a lot of folks that are blaming the Democrats for all of this, saying, well, if you would have came up with ideas that would have sold, then people would have voted for you. No, we have a completely screwed up media environment where people are just completely able to believe lies and think that, that's the truth. Well, even if we did have these policies, we have to find a way of piercing through this media nightmare so that people actually understand what the truth is.
Well, wait until poor white rural America loses their Medicaid.
Well, we're going to take a short break here. More to come on the Gaily Show.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Hi, this is Ken Hagland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, heard each Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950, where we talk about ways to improve and enjoy your highest quality of life. Joining me this Saturday is James Falvey, Executive Director of Friends & Company, where socially isolated older adults get connected with caring, vetted volunteers. Their purpose is to create meaningful connections that enrich people's lives and provide a sense of belonging. That's this Saturday, March 8th, from noon to 1 on Living Healthy and Aging Well.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction again. Does your home feel colder than it should with the furnace constantly running? Or do certain rooms always feel colder than the rest of the house? Those are signs the attic in your home may need an insulation upgrade. Snap Construction can help by providing a free energy audit for your home's insulation. The average cost of getting new insulation can cost much less than a new furnace. Plus, Snap Construction is a BPI certified installer. That means if you use Snap for your next insulation project, you qualify for up to $650 in total rebates from your energy provider. After my free inspection, my insulation upgrade was completed within a few weeks and the rebate check was in the mail. Snap to it and reduce your heating bill this winter with Snap Construction. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP for your free energy audit when you mention AM 950. Snap Construction, arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation company in the metro.
Spring and summer is the right time to install your fireplace. Find your perfect fireplace and have it installed and ready before the cold weather hits again. If you already have a wood fireplace, consider a fireplace insert or check out the entire selection at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces on East Franklin and Riverside in Minneapolis. It will transform your inefficient fireplace into a reliable, environmentally smart heating system.
This is Peter Solak, owner of Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Have you ever watched your dog or cat curl up in front of a fire? It's primordial, the way it touches both the animal and the human. We know that fire reaches deep into the heart and soul. Let us show you how. We have over 35 working units on display here in Minneapolis. We are located at the east end of Riverside Avenue at 2901 East Franklin. From I-94, take the Riverside Avenue exit. Find us also online at woodlandstoves.com. Let us help you make a fireplace part of your life.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. It is 21 minutes past the hour. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. Before we move on to the next story, I think it's really easy for me to sit there and say, the progressives also want to, talk about these things, and the Democratic Party, I want to call it a very specific thing. The Congressional Progressive Caucus put out a fair trade agenda. And if you go to Google, you can just Google fair trade agenda, progressive, or Congressional Progressive Caucus fair trade agenda. And they were talking about all of this, renegotiating NAFTA. And when you look, it's not a very wonky document. It's a very short, it's just 11 pages, but it breaks it down very, very clearly of the things that they wanted to do. They wanted to have a transparent policy making process. I'm looking at the document right now because so much of NAFTA happens behind closed doors. They were talking about getting rid of the trade deficit and restoring balanced trade. They were talking about getting rid of NAFTA's outsourcing incentives and corporate tribunals that were built into the trade agreement, which says, and this is what, United Auto Workers should know this, that if you put a tariff on there, they're not going to bring back their plants from Mexico or China or Canada. They're just going to pass on the tax to the consumer and leave everything the way that it is. So there needs to be a better way of bringing folks over here that is much more comprehensive than just doing something that sounds like it's, a tactic, but it's not really a tactic at all. There's the expansion of American procurement policies, so a buy American first with like governmental agencies. There's a variety of things in here. It goes on for 11 pages. So many very specific things that can be done here. So the progressives, this is the progressive voice of Minnesota, the progressives, the Congressional Progressive Caucus had ideas put forward, ready to go, that were not as fully implemented as they needed to be in the Biden administration or the Obama administrations, and definitely not under the Clinton administrations. But again, we were saying before the break, even with all of this, even if the Democratic Party had all of these things, getting through the media wall is so difficult right now. I mean, social media is owned by fascists, and they're basically coming out and saying so in not so many words. Some very clearly, you're Elon Musk's, and others that are like, yeah, we're totally, we're good with this wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're not going to say fascist or do, a Heil Hitler salute like Musk. But you have the New York Times, the Star Tribune, sane washing Trump. You have, they've now the Washington Post and the LA Times are like, we're not going to print. Wait, is the LA Times or Washington Post that said we're not going to print anti-Trump op-eds or editorials? You have to have both sides of the issue here. And so we need to start buying up these local newspapers. We need to be obviously supporting, your independent progressive media stations, but we need to be buying local TV stations. We need to be buying up these, these larger media entities, because if we don't start piercing the veil of the nonsense, the fact that we could have tens of millions of Americans thinking that COVID was a conspiracy theory by the Biden administration to take over the country and that it wasn't real.
Right.
How are they supposed to know that the Democrats actually had a progressive economic agenda that would have actually brought manufacturing back to the United States? How are they supposed to know that?
I think we're going to have to dumb down our message quite a bit to meet Americans where they are. So that's going to be...
There can be that, but there's the distribution question.
But Tom Steyer should buy a television station. I've said that publicly many times. Yes.
Bloomberg Media should become maybe way more lefty.
Yep. Soros. Yep.
Well, speaking of the Democratic Party, I guess we're happy with the filibuster. Yay! The Democrats in the Senate used the filibuster to defeat the Protection of Women and Girls Sports Act. The bill would have banned transgender female athletes from girls and women's sports. The bill failed on a party line vote, 51-45. And as I had to be explained, because I was like, wait, 51-45, that's a majority. It's the filibuster. So they didn't get to 60 votes, which means that they couldn't push get the bill moving it forward. It would have amended Title IX to prohibit schools from allowing trans female athletes to participate in athletic programs or activities designated for women or girls, quote unquote. First of all, I just want to say that, Mr. Tommy Tuberville, who's claiming on all of the media outlets that interview him that, oh, we have all of these trans athletes participating in sports. No, unfortunately, we don't have barely any trans participation in school sports. So this idea that you're solving a problem right now is complete, utter hogwash.
Right.
So it's important for folks when you're sitting there and like, well, I don't know, how many are there? We're telling you right now, verifiable fact. The number is ridiculously minuscule small. There are some states that don't have any documented trans athletes in K through college sports at all.
Right.
Meaning that nobody has come out and said that, right? So there's no actual documented cases. There very well could be, and they just haven't, come out yet. But it's just absolutely bonkers that we're dealing with this. And speaking of the New York Times Ipsos poll that came out earlier this year, where they're like, only 4% of Americans care about LGBTQ issues. So why does the Democratic Party keep talking about LGBTQ issues? They need to move on because they're not the party of America anymore. And it's like, oh wait, New York Times, who is spending more of their presidency in the first 2 months dealing with the queers than any other president in the history of this country?
Right.
Oh, it wasn't a Democrat.
Right.
It wasn't Biden. It wasn't Obama. It wasn't Clinton. There's exactly one president who has spent 2 months passing every piece of legislation and executive order he can to deal with the queer community.
Yep. He is obsessed with queers. Donald Trump is.
Obsessed.
Yep.
Obsessed. But this is the New York Times. I'm so grateful for Glad Media going after the New York Times because of their absolutely ridiculous trans coverage. I mean, their coverage is so factually incorrect, and they don't even care at this point. And they have to know about it because Glad literally puts signs on trucks outside of the entrance to the New York Times saying we are fact checking you and you are wrong on all of these issues when it relates to trans healthcare and to trans athletes and to basically anything transgender related.
The formerly great New York Times.
It's
sad.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers to me. That's the word I can use. on air. It also frustrates me when I see folks who are on the left talking about, we need to be pro LGBTQ and we need to be pro Palestine and we need to be pro, and stopping genocides, across the country. And I'm like, okay, well, if you believe that, the New York Times, not pro LGBTQ, they're anti-Palestine, and they don't even report on genocides happening across the country. Not across the country, across the world. As an Armenian, the country that my grandfather was born in doesn't exist anymore because of Azerbaijan.
Right.
And New York Times, they didn't report a word about what was going on during that in 2020.
Yeah.
So anyway, wow, this is a ranty day today. Support local businesses. They keep the Gaily Show and Progressive Radio on the air. More to come. Stay tuned to the Gaily Show.
Hello, Minnesota. This is Tom Hartman, and you can catch me every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's smart radio for smart people.
Hi, it's Penny from Nightingale in Minneapolis. Since 2012, we've been your go-to dining spot near 26th and Lyndale in South Minneapolis. Indulge in classics like our scallops, steak tartare, Nightingale burger, and the irresistible chocolate pot de creme. Chef Carrie keeps it fresh with seasonal dishes. We have craft cocktails and curated wines for anyone's taste. And Mondays mean half-price wine bottles. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with the full menu until midnight. Join us at Nightingale where good times and great flavors come together.
If you go to shoprainbowrd.com, you will find an amazing variety of adult novelties, literally thousands of items that you can peruse in the privacy of your home and have shipped to your door. Plus, in the store, you can find swimwear, casual wear, underwear, everywhere. Rainbow Road is located at 109 West Grand Street near Loring Park. Gift cards are available for the hard to shop for. Go to shoprainbowrd.com.
It's time to experience the amazing flavors of eatlocalminnesota.com. It's your key to unlocking the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities. Nightingale off 26th and Lyndale is where good times and great flavors unite. Chef Carrie keeps it fresh with seasonal dishes, or savor classics like the Nightingale burger, steak tartare, and irresistible chocolate pot de creme. Explore tasty vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options, and enjoy craft cocktails, curated wines, and half-price wine bottles every Monday. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. More at nightingalempls.com. Maverick's Real Roast Beef in Roseville sets the bar when it comes to roast beef sandwiches. But let's not forget their other mouthwatering offerings, from Philly steak to turkey bacon avocado, BLT, crispy chicken, fish, brisket, and pulled pork. The menu is a flavor-packed delight. Don't miss out on their delicious variety. Explore the full menu at mavericksbeef.com. Your taste buds will thank you.
This is AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Join me this week on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. Monday, we'll be talking about faith-based religions' lack of belief in the paranormal with Father Bob Bailey. Tuesday, we'll be talking about Mardi Gras and spirits with renowned psychic medium Bloody Mary. Wednesday, one-question readings with psychic medium Refined Divine. Scott Porter, Thursday, talking about his TV show, Secrets of the Asylum. Plus, as always, Casual Friday. Join us all this week on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m., and you can catch past episodes on ghostboxradio.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for rain this afternoon with the temp falling to about 37. Tonight, 3 to 5 inches of snow with a low around 26. And Wednesday, partly cloudy with a high around 32. Looking for a cozy neighborhood bar and restaurant in Minneapolis? Nightingale serves delicious American classics like their famous Nightingale burger, ginger tamari chicken wings, and more. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with takeout available. Visit nightingalempls.com for details.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Hello to those watching on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thegailyshow. You are listening and or watching The Gaily Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. Executive producer Jim Pounds with me here in the studio. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. The filibuster, where I was headed. before getting side railed there. I want to hear folks' thoughts about the filibuster, because this is exactly the argument that we're trying to figure out here with the filibuster in the U.S. Senate is, when we're in the minority, we all love the filibuster. And here we were able to stop, legislation that would have banned trans athletes in sports. And then when we're in the majority, we don't want the filibuster because we don't have 60 votes. And this is, how do we resolve this?
I don't think, I've never really been a fan of the filibuster because it basically ensures that you can almost not get anything done in the Senate because you can't get 60 people to agree on anything.
On particular pieces of legislation, there's certain things like judges and other things where there is no filibuster anymore. It is a vote. It's a simple majority vote.
It seems arbitrary, doesn't it, in a world of the majority rules? It doesn't really make any sense. It never did make sense to me. I'm glad for it for yesterday, but technically it seems very anti-democratic, to be honest. It just seems like if we're dumb enough to elect the majority of senators to be Republican, we're going to get screwed, and that's what we've done. So we dodged that bullet. But I'm not a fan of the filibuster. I just don't understand its purpose.
I
don't
know if I want to say that because I might need to be fact checked on that. But my understanding, you can call in if this is otherwise, is that it's from the Jim Crow era, that it was Southern senators that wanted the filibuster to make sure that the Union senators couldn't pass anything that would, disrupt their whole, genocidal enslavement system that they had going on down there. And it persists to this day. But it is this love-hate relationship that we have with the filibuster. I haven't seen anything. I was looking it up. I haven't seen any reporting from the Republicans talking about getting rid of the filibuster.
Oh.
So the thing though is the democracy thing. How do we get back to 60 votes? Nobody has had 60 votes in the Senate since Obama did, when Arlen Specter flipped seats and he became the 60th vote in the Senate.
Yep.
So they had the veto proof majority.
Right.
But since then we haven't had 60. Neither party has had 60 votes. So the Senate is becoming places where certain bills go to die. If you want to get a Supreme Court justice, majority vote, federal justices, cabinet people, majority vote.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like
budget stuff. I think is also a majority vote, but pieces of legislation like this are still under the filibuster rules, and it's this conundrum that how do we?
It's like the Electoral College. It doesn't have anything to do with democracy. It has everything to do with holding on to power. So we should, in my opinion, be rid of the filibuster and be rid of the Electoral College and let an actual democracy exist and not be. I mean, I'm scared because the majority of people apparently can't figure out how economics works. And so look at the mess we're going to face. But still, what we're doing is not a democracy. We're putting other barriers in the way of democracy to prevent an actual democracy from happening. And I think we should not do that, personally.
It is. I'll be curious to see what happens here as things go along. Will there be any pressure on the Senate Republicans to get rid of the filibuster, particularly when it comes to his promises like this? This was a big, huge campaign promise, was trans participation in sports, K through college, and so it'll be will they be pressured to get rid of the filibuster so that they can pass this anti-LGBTQ, anti-people of color, anti-immigrant agenda?
And I want to just say, in this situation of particular athletes participating in something to protect girls, that's something a school can decide about, I guess, if there really is some threat to, that's nothing the federal government needs to stick their nose into. I mean, honestly, that's a singular, that school over there having that issue for whatever that is, and somebody needs to make a professional decision. That's what this is. And we're turning it into a clown car like everything else associated with the Republicans now, because they think they'll get donations out of it. I mean, I don't even think they care. I think they just want to get more donations. It's so insincere.
Hating the gays is a massive fundraising
Yeah,
platform.
it's
They make so much money off of that.
so twisted.
Speaking of a clown show,
Well, I did want to say about the disgrace of the meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office. They take those photo sessions, and we've all seen these I have for decades. And the president sits there with the other head of state, and they kind of smile at each other, and they look around, and the photographers take photos, and that's what that is. It's just to say they had this meeting. Here's Zelensky. Here's Trump. They had this meeting. Okay, but this president, in his whatever personality disorder he has to turn it into something else by having to have all these supposed journalists standing behind him for a photo op. These supposed journalists, one of them is a commentator for a right-wing tiny website of zero consequence, dressed up like a reporter, who made the comment about the clothing that the head of state of another country had on, which is so frighteningly of no consequence that it debased him as a human being and a professional. It debased the president. It debased the United States. That's your question? That's your big gotcha question? Do you have a suit? I mean, literally, you couldn't find somebody more stupid to throw away what is really just a photo op. Just sit there and be quiet, And Trump can't even do that. He can't even just sit there and have his photograph taken. He's got to put this plant in there. And the plant, of course, is the person that lies down with Marjorie Taylor Greene. So this isn't even somebody, he's there because he's, with somebody that Trump thinks is really great. So they do this little secret thing like 14-year-olds and set this guy up. And it was, I just want people to know, yes, it was disgraceful if it was legitimate, but it wasn't even legitimate. It was a big show, a big reality show act.
My favorite, I don't know, the cringe moment for me is when they were catching the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine's reactions and how she was like putting her fingers up to her nose and like shaking her head and
I have a migraine.
was watching an obvious train wreck happening.
Right.
Amateurs. So I want to start getting into healthcare. Healthcare is a sort of passion of mine. I spent 3 years working in Minnesota in LGBTQ health equity. And what I did is I worked for an organization that collected a lot of data around LGBTQ health. And then I took that data and turned it into educational programming. And I worked with medical academic degree programs. I worked with big healthcare clinics. I worked with independent healthcare clinics. I was working, I had accredited programming with the Minnesota Social Work Board and with the Minnesota Medical Association Board. And so I did that for 3 years. And so folks will see as we, it's been 2 months now that we've been on the air, 2 months Thursday that we've been on the air. And how are we doing, by the way? Folks should call in and let us know how we're doing. Yeah. It's been 2 months now. What do you like? What do you not like? But healthcare will be something that we will be continuing coverage on. Already starting to line up guests who can come on to talk about that and finding reports to break down here. There's a piece of legislation and reporting in the San Francisco Bay Area Reporter in California that I thought was very interesting because they have a STI pandemic happening among youth.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly, the age of consent in California is 18 years old, but you have a problem with, high schoolers getting these STIs. And so there's a state senator, Caroline Menivar, who represents San Fernando Valley. identifies as a lesbian. And she's been putting forward bills that Governor Newsom keeps vetoing, claiming that it is the high price tag. But what was included in her bills is providing free condoms to 9th through 12th graders in California public schools. Now, Menivar is back this session with a different approach to the issue, is what the Bay Area Reporter is reporting. Right now, in the bill would be a ban on public schools serving grades 7 through 12 from prohibiting school-based health centers from making condoms available and accessible to students who are enrolled at these schools and go to these health center sites. It would also restrict public school officials from prohibiting condom distribution in the context of educational and public health program initiatives, such as sex education or classes by community partners, peer health programs, campus health fairs, or distributed by school-based health care staff. It would also grant authority to the California Department of Education for monitoring schools' compliance with the California Healthy Youth Act, which required that all comprehensive sexual health and HIV prevention instruction and materials, grades K through 12, be inclusive of LGBTQ students. And SB 608 would also prohibit pharmacies and retailers from requiring customers to present identification for condom or non-prescription contraception purchases. And I think that this was, so the Bay Area Reporter has this quote from Amy Moy, who is the co-CEO of Essential Access Health, an organization that is co-sponsoring the legislation. And Amy Moy said, "We have made significant progress in reducing barriers to sexual and reproductive health care in California, but too many young people, especially LGBTQIA plus youth and youth of color, continue to experience health inequities and face barriers to evidence-based prevention strategies like accessing condoms. This law is a youth-informed policy solution for addressing the STI epidemic among California youth and ensuring they have the tools they need to protect their health and futures." And I think that this is so. We were having a similar issue here in Minnesota back when I was working for this health organization around chlamydia. And one of the things that I would do is I would work with staff around whether that was nurses or doctors or other licensed care professionals around inclusive questionnaires. So we would work on how to ask questions about sexual health and sexual activity, how to ask questions about HIV, how to ask questions about PrEP, and we would literally do exercises around like, okay, here's things you can use, but write it in your own words. And so that it's your voice that's asking, these questions. And we would sort of role play it. And I'm happy to see, I like that California is going after this from a legal perspective because it allows for compliance and accountability. There are other states that have been less wanting to do that because, there's already, doctors and organizations claim and health executives claim that there's already too many regulations and you're just adding another layer of bureaucracy. And there needs to be another way of, encouraging this without having to always regulate everything.
Right.
And I think that it's really interesting to see California pushing this right now as a healthcare issue. I'm going to continue talking about this after the break. One last break to get to. Please support our sponsors because they keep progressive radio on the air. You are listening to The Gaily Show.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Hi, I'm Corey Wisco, president of the Welshire. The Welshire is a community that provides memory care to its residents. And we have a location in Bloomington and also another one that we just opened in Medina, Minnesota. But the big question is that why do people come to Wellshire? Many of the people coming to Wellshire are coming from other memory care communities where they maybe haven't received bathing. They've had problems taking medication or inconsistency with staffing. Wellshire has never used a temporary staff. We always have our own people, and it's those people that make the difference. We have always felt it so important to have 24-hour nursing in the building. The other thing is you have to have an amazing activity team. Nobody employs more activity people than Wellshire. Our activities begin in the morning, go all the way through the evening, 7 days a week. So if you have a loved one that needs memory care, come visit wellshiremn.com and book a tour today.
Hi, my name is Katty from Minnesota Recovery Connection.
And I'm Erin with Minnesota Recovery Connection.
We'd like you to listen to our show, Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. It is on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on AM 950.
On the show, we discuss topics about addiction, understanding substance use disorder, the many pathways to recovery, and finding your personal journey.
Listen to Redefining Recovery Saturdays at 10 a.m. and find our podcast on your favorite app.
Hey, it's Patrick. We're headed into March, which means spring cleaning is almost here. You're about to realize that, and so is just about everybody else, too. That's why you need to beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our friends at Zero Res right now. We just had Zero Res over at our house last week, and they did such a wonderful job. They were on time, professional, and we couldn't be happier with the results. Spring is a time for renewal. Let Zero Res help you refresh your home with clean carpets, fresh floors, and improved air quality. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from Minnesota's #1 carpet cleaner starting at $129 and take $75 off an air duct cleaning. Again, that's 3 rooms starting at $129 and $75 off an air duct cleaning. Beat the rush. Call now 9520-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. That's Zero Res. Backward or forward spells the same.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. In conversation with me in the studio, executive producer Jim Pounds. We were talking about LGBTQ healthcare before the break, and I like what California is doing here with its new laws, but what it's got me thinking about is how there can't just be any more an LGBTQ healthcare policy platform. And what I mean by that is when we're coming into power again in 2029, there won't be a Department of Health and Human Services like we saw it under Biden, right? There may not be a CDC. There certainly won't be a CDC as we've known it to be, right? And so we really need to be thinking through our healthcare plan. There may not be Medicaid, or Medicaid may be significantly scaled back. The Affordable Care Act, that might also be significantly scaled back. And there could be massive cuts to Medicaid, to food stamps, to a variety of different programming. And so as we're thinking about healthcare moving forward, and I'm saying this is even a challenge to myself of how are we thinking of that in a much more comprehensive, systemic way? Because when we take power again in 2029, we're going to have a systemic approach to all of this.
Well, that's almost beyond my ability to think of it, but to this issue of teenagers and STIs and all that stuff, I always wondered, and I don't know how much of this I can actually talk about, but I felt like, is there a way to counsel young people against the dangers of the whatever the act that would require a condom? Let's say that's the thing to avoid. That's where people get pregnant and all that stuff, right? So is there a way to sort of steer them away from that?
Well, yeah, sex ed.
Well, yeah, and I think that's more
real, honest sexual education.
right? And detailed and forthright, and really urging people to and saying, look, you're putting yourself and everybody else at your health, your partner's health, at tremendous, and being really honest with them. I think kids would respond to that. Not everybody. There's some people you can't do that with, but it's that act that requires a condom that is the dangerous thing to be doing, right? And other things are less so. So it just seems like if kids were well informed, and we know they're not getting good sex education in parochial schools. They're not getting good sex education in homeschooling. They're getting terrible education. And even in the public schools, I think their hands are tied, and we need to really take those ties off, because these kids need honesty, truthfully, and they need to hear the ugly truth. And then to some degree, you have to let chips fall where they may, I guess.
Well, it's the adults need that information too. I think there's a lot of stuff that could be covered in sexual health education that we don't know about, as adults. I mean, I've talked to a number of medical professionals who have licensed and worked for a very long time in their fields, and would start giggling like 12-year-olds when I was like, here's how we do a screening for HIV. And they would get all nervous. And what do I say? And I don't want to offend somebody. And I'm like, you are the licensed professional here. Like, this is what we're here to do. But I mean, all of the stigma is attached around it. We need to start, unpacking that. But I think that, as we are people who are thinking about healthcare policy and LGBTQ healthcare policy, it's going to have to be on a much bigger macro scale, because you can't put together a plan if there is no federal agency there to implement it. So you're going to have to rethink what that agency is going to look like.
And no protection from notification about diseases. That's the thing that scares me so much. We are likely going to
health research
to run into a disease that's going to kill a lot of people, and we're not going to know about it. We're not going to get told about it.
The idea,
very bad.
The idea of the first 100 days came from FDR,
right,
when he was first put into office, because he was doing so many different things to pull the United States out of the Great Depression. And we are going to need a 21st century 100 days in 2029, because it's going to be on all fronts. They were laying people off of NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency.
So
health research. It is going to be we're going to need such a comprehensive approach to coming back in there, but it needs to be. And I know this word is tossed around a lot as a concept, and as it is an actual academic concept that has been watered down. But this idea of intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
And being very clear about how we are looking at people as full range of experiences, and not this idea of healthcare policy needs to be intersectional. It needs to take that into account, because once it does that, then we're not just looking at healthcare for the majority, right? We're getting rid of all the blind spots, which is where, queer people have existed forever, is in the blind spots, if they were not just openly being targeted, and saying, we're not going to do any healthcare for you, or the healthcare that we provide is going to be stigmatizing, and, conversion therapy and stuff like that.
So we need someone to pull us out of the Trump depression, which we're going to be in.
Yeah. But
job.
Also, I mean, pulling ourselves out. We were just talking about this. Was it yesterday? About the need for political imagination. And in Kansas, their legislature passed a resolution calling for a constitutional convention. They get it. They understand political imagination. They believe in the power to change the Constitution. Why is it only them that think that they have the power to do that? Why we don't have a choice anymore to sit back and go, oh, well, we'll just come back into power and we'll do little incremental things or little piecemeal things left, right, and here. Right. No, it's going to have to be big. Very, very big.
Yep.
Tomorrow, we are going to be here with White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane. There is a joint session of Congress this evening that Trump is going to be speaking to. We're going to break that down with Christopher Kane tomorrow. Stay tuned for the Matt McNeil Show. Yes, Jim.
March 12th is the deadline to register to vote in Wisconsin. Do it.
We can talk more about that tomorrow. Stay tuned for the Matt McNeil Show coming up next. After that, Native Roots Radio. In the meantime, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.